Excellent. So I'll go ahead and quickly introduce myself and my co-presenter, Stephen. I know all of the boxes appear different. So on my screen, Stephen is this way. So hello, Stephen.
I'm actually right above you right now.
Dang it. I knew it was close. The Brady Bunch, all the Brady Bunch I watched as a kid has still failed me as a last week. So my name is Kristin Slice, and we're excited to co-present with you today. It's me and co-presenter Stephen Russell. I am part of the ASU Entrepreneurship and Innovation team, leading a program called Peoria Forward. Stephen is our representative who will be talking a little bit more about Project Cities and what Project was doing out there. Now, you may have noticed originally in the description for this program, there was 4 people, maybe wondering where our other 2 were. We've been very honored to work very closely with Jay as well as Amber out at the city of Peoria. And as you can guess, both of them have been leading up the response to COVID out in individual communities. So I know it's Jay Davies, right? Mm-hmm. And his full title is Assistant City Manager, right?
Chief of Staff for the City Manager's Office.
There you go. So he's been busy responding on public health issues and how the city's responding appropriately. Amber's been leading up the response to small businesses and how they can do outreach on that. And so we offered, knowing how busy they were, able to take their words and be able to forward the information to you guys. But we wanted to make sure that they knew that their first commitment is always to their city. And so we gave them the space and kind of let them opt out, if you will, on that. So we will be excited to share best practices. You will hopefully get a lot of information from us on what we've been doing and hopefully be able to translate their words for you. All right, so that's a quick interview we're hoping to do today, and to kind of give you a quick overview of where we're headed. We are going to have, I would like to have an interactive session. I think you need, even in a conference, it's always important, even if it's virtual, open for questions. I do encourage all of you, if you have a question, write it in the chat. Steve and I have been, becoming Zoom masters in the last week, so I know we've been using it a lot. So if you have any questions, feel free to write it in the chat, and we're going to be monitoring that, and then we'll call on you individually to share that as we get to different sections. We've also got a couple of questions to get started with, and so we're hoping to have a great interactive session to share a little bit about what we've done, but also to give you guys and hear some best practices and what you guys have been doing as well. And so with that, let's go ahead and take it to our question. If you want to advance the slide, Kevin. So the first question we wanted to start off with, and I think it's always great to be part of these conferences and see all of the amazing things that are happening across ASU. Even the few breakouts I've been able to pop into today, I've seen such a diversity. So I'd love for you to virtually raise your hand or just type yes into the chat. How many of you have ever executed a ASU program with an external partner at the same time that another ASU program was working with that same partner? So go ahead and take a second to locate your chat on the chat button. And if the answer is yes, you have worked with that, go ahead and type in yes.
We got a yes from Jenny.
Yes, Jenny's the first response. She's she gets the gold star. Not yet. There you go.
You know, Kristin, you might know this already, but I have.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Who let Vincent in? Did you let Vincent in? I don't think we approved that. You said as a co-host, I had responsibility of who's All right. Yes, haha, very much so. All right. So a couple of people that are saying yes, that had different programs and that you're just getting started on that. And so we asked that question because it's pretty reflective of what Stephen and I's experience was in starting out in Peoria. So we'll get into the individual programs. Let's go ahead and move to the next slide. One more question for you guys. So for those of you that said yes, or that you have, how did you find out about that partner? So we'd be curious what other people's experience were. How did you find that partner was working with another ASU program? Go ahead and type it into the chat, and then we might call on people if we get a couple of responses on this. So if you were working with a partner, all right, so they went ahead and Jenny, if you don't mind unmuting yourself real quick, talking a little bit about it. So it was just the partner came forward to you and shared, hey, we're already working with another ASU partner?
Yes. Basically, we're out in the community a lot, and someone might approach us and ask us to table at an event, and then we'll find out, oh, Access ASU is also tabling at the event.
Mm-hmm.
And so then so we need to work with Access ASU and say, oh, you guys are more appropriate to do the tabling, we are happy to help, or whatever. And I always tell our partners on the outside that the beauty of ASU is we are so big that and innovative that a lot of people will go out and help you, but it does kind of reflect on us stepping on each other's toes a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that we were, kind of the impetus of this conversation is kind of how do we at ASU communicate with each other, just making sure the left hand is talking to the right. Kristin, how did Jimmy and Anne connected to connect our programs, right? Because it came from you reached out to me.
Yeah, so originally how we found out Project Cities was the press release went out. And so
That's
actually
right.
Jenny forwarded the press release and said, hey, did you know? And so Jenny has been one of our partners out there that kind of pays attention to all the things happening in the community. So in the community resources that we have on every campus and Jenny Thomas's team, they were really the ones that kind of facilitated that discussion. There had been lots of discussions in the past. I know Anne and Jimmy have got a relationship and hire up lots of different connections, and staff and team members do. But sometimes the challenge is knowing down on the program level when those things start to execute, to connecting those dots. So it was, I had reached out after seeing the press release.
And speaking of Anne, we have 4 different answers from Anne runs the Sustainable Cities Network, kind of the housing organization for Project Cities. And I think this also kind of gets to that point too. She has all 4 different ways that you can find out, right? And we don't necessarily. Well, and there might be networks to facilitate that better, right? And we just don't really know exactly where they are or what they might be.
Yeah, and so I included them all because I guess I've been doing this way too long. And so I've run across instances of all different cases where it's both internally, just through our connections with students and faculty in particular, just happened to mention that they're working on this project or with this group, as well as with our communities that are involved in the network, that they happen to just mention usually that they're partnering or working on a different project, which they're all great, but it all, most of us, it ends up being a surprise because it's like, oh, wow, that's great. Just add that one to the list, essentially. So they kind of come from all different areas, and also through our public partners. So like the nonprofit organizations and even private sector companies. I've run into situations where they'll let me know that they're invested in a class project or doing, working with someone in particular. So it does come from all different avenues, amazingly. I mean, and ASU is such a big place, that's not at all surprising.
And so while you're unmuted, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Anne, if you can answer the questions. What would you say are some of the challenges that come with that nature of the fact that we are, and then what are some of the advantages that you've seen in your experience?
Well, I think the advantage is certainly that due to our size, we can be in so many different areas doing so many different things. So we have that ability to really have a scalable impact. I think the challenge is that it is not easy to coordinate, and sometimes we don't leverage all of the connections we have within the university to maximize that experience for the partner. Granted, not everybody can be involved in each different project or opportunity. Otherwise, you get too many cooks in the kitchen, and then it can just kind of fall apart. So you do have to be selective. But I do think that the challenge is that we don't, as a large organization, more effectively coordinate. And so that becomes a bit of a challenge because, and also just making sure that if we are considering partnership or some kind of project, that we're at least informing the larger group population so that they can have the opportunity to say, hey, guess what, this would also be really good, and here's some, political background, because certainly there are politics involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't always know about all of those really sensitive relationships or situations. And those can prove detrimental if you're not familiar with the, I guess you can say, the environment that you're stepping into. And you don't want to put your faculty or your students at risk. Some cities and organizations are, I think, more attuned to that type of awareness, as others are not. And so you really have to kind of be a mediator to be able to identify and kind of manage those relationships. So
Absolutely.
did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. You talked a
Okay.
little bit about some of the advantages, which are, we have a scalable impact. I love that term. That would probably be like my tweet from what you just said there. It's scalable impact. And yet the challenges and the opportunities come from how do we make sure that we're aware of that? And I think, both Anne and Jenny and a couple other people in the comments I'm hearing a lot of is they happen to tell us, right? And sometimes there is this just lack of, there's not necessarily a process we have created yet. And I know that's a piece of what we're talking about, both as a social embeddedness conference, is how do we start to build those organic relationships? And then towards the end of the conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about what might be a better way, or some of the best practices, just to kind of brainstorm, how do we structure these? Because I know this is a question that the entire university is looking at. When you put social embeddedness as one of your key goals, you're going to have a lot of programs that are socially embedded. How do you make sure that you leverage those advantages and still not step on each other? All right, great. Well, thank you very much, you guys, for that input. Go ahead and move it to the next slide, Kevin. There you go. Introduce a little bit about who we are, and that's in the next section, about our two projects that were happening out in Peoria. And the first one, I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenter, Stephen Russell.
Well, hi, folks. Let's go next slide. So Project Cities is an organization that seeks to facilitate the university community partnership. I always say there's not really a lot that's new to the concept, but what we seek to do is really facilitate that process, do the matchmaking, kind of be the boots and eyes and ears on the ground at ASU, and then also on behalf of the city, kind of filter information, help to coordinate students and make it a positive win-win experience for everyone. And so we've had, just by the numbers here, we've had 4 community partners over the year, and you see those on the left side of the screen there. It's Peoria. Apache Junction was our first partner back in 2017. And then we've since worked with the city of Glendale. We are currently working with the town of Clarkdale and of course the city of Peoria, who we're talking about today. And we do a variety of events and just kind of coordination through the course of the semester to make those projects as smooth as possible, see what additional resources we can put into the classroom, et cetera. So we are a member of an organization called EPIC. It is 39 programs across not just the US, but across the world, using a similar model here. And they're all structured just a little bit differently in this way or that way. And so the network provides us an opportunity to collaborate, develop our models further, and see kind of what's worked for one another and what hasn't and what we can do better. We are a small but mighty team. I'm the program manager for Project Cities. Anne, who we spoke to earlier, is the director for the program. And then we have a student team of 2 under Project Cities and 1 under SCN. Next slide, please. So our goal's pretty simple. Basically, it's to find win-win solutions for challenging sustainability issues in the community. And we say win-win because 1, it improves quality of life for residents. 2, it increases the learning experience for students and faculty here at the university. By providing research-backed solutions to really complex, challenging problems, but that provides a double dip opportunity for students to learn out in the real world. And of course, this adds capacity. So as you see here, we've had quite a few projects. There have been 36 since our initiation in 2017. Total matches with 21 discrete projects, sometimes with multiple classes on, so that's why we get 2 numbers. In total, we've engaged about 555 students across the university. That's representing all campuses. It's covering 36 classes. There are 29 faculty members in our network, and we have to date worked with 15 different divisions and schools across the university. As you can see here, it's a very highly multidisciplinary program for everything from administration questions to research, and of course, at our core is sustainability as a part of every project. So what do we actually do? One of the things is events. So we just set the tone off right by doing a big kickoff event for each community at the beginning of the semester. That's a chance for the students to actually go out on site and get their hands dirty, learn a little bit about the challenges that they'll be working on. We will facilitate then at the end of the semester a showcase event. This is a public event. We will be actually doing our first fully virtual event this next April 29th. If you want more information on that, let me know in the chat and I'll send a link. But this is a public, yeah, it's fine. You can skip ahead. We bring the city out. It's a great time for everyone in the students public who present their research. Promotion is a big part of what we do as well, just kind of, again, elevating the work that the students are doing. And we will also send them out on site. So we facilitate transportation, arrange visits, do food, logistics, et cetera, so that students can have that real world applied kind of professional networking opportunity. And then at the end of the semester, we put together these lovely semi-professional summary reports, which kind of distill the information down for the city folks. We do an executive summary for the folks who frankly otherwise wouldn't really read it, and provide a digestible version of the information, make it very actionable with strategic recommendations on how they can implement the research that the students did. And these are, again, a public document that we provide to the community as well as the students. The students get an author credit, so it's a win-win. Next. And we put resources into the classroom as well. We have kind of a $500 pot of money for each class, and students come up with all sorts of different ways that we can use that. Sometimes it's measurement equipment. We've done quite a few professional services like graphic design, transcription, special software, things like that. It's, again, all about what can we do to elevate the final outcome and the student learning experience. Next. And so I'll just briefly touch on a couple success stories. Last year, the city of Apache Junction officially approved a solid waste program overhaul. It was a previously completely privatized system with really no controls whatsoever, and it ended up being a very inefficient system with multiple trucks running the same routes over and over again, huge air quality issues, and wear and tear on the streets, et cetera. Our students redesigned their program completely. It was passed by city council last spring and took a full year for implementation, but actually on the day of our showcase last semester, we got word from the city of Apache Junction that the single hauler was selected through an RFP-based system that the students devised, and they'd be moving forward. There was also a project with an off-leash dog park that got set up on the shelf, and our students analyzed several sites, and the city of Apache Junction moved forward with one of the sites our students analyzed. I'm out of time, so I'm going to move ahead, but there are plenty of great outcomes from the program.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Stephen. And so I'm going to ask, and can we switch over where I can share real quick? Or Kevin, can you give me control of the PowerPoint? If it takes longer than 10 seconds, we'll just keep going with it. But I wanted to make sure that we, all right, go ahead and pop up your slides then, and we'll go through it. I want to make sure that we fly through some of these slides so that we can open up for Q&A. So just real quick, high level, Peoria Forward. For those of you that don't know, let me give you a quick introduction on what Peoria Forward is. So Peoria Forward is a high impact partnership to grow and scale the entrepreneurial ecosystem out in the city of Peoria. Advance. About 4 years ago, so we're coming into actually our third year in the program. The city of Peoria came to Entrepreneurship and Innovation team and said, we would like to know how to work with entrepreneurs better. How do we continue to build the community? How do we more effectively serve the small businesses that are out here? And so we created a partnership between ASU and the city of Peoria, and that program is called Peoria Forward. So we had 2 different phases to the program. The first phase, we had over 25 events in the first year, as well as a comprehensive ecosystem assessment. Show of hands real quick, and so this is the virtual hand raise. If you can, how many of you have heard the term entrepreneurial ecosystem development before today? Yes, no? Stephen, all right. And Jenny's raising her hand. Good. All right. Just in case you didn't know this, so these are the important facts for everybody to know. Yes, Vincent, I would hope that you do, but just in case you guys don't know the language, I know it's a little bit on the niche-y jargon side. So almost 2/3 of all new jobs come from businesses under 5 years old. So entrepreneurship is really a key cornerstone to any community. Entrepreneurs also provide a sense of community, a sense of place. If you think of the best places, the cities you want to travel to, live in, build your family in, it's places that have the great local coffee shop, that have the great restaurants. I think all of us are keenly aware in the last 2 weeks of the challenges that entrepreneurs are now facing and the reality of what losing them might mean for our communities. Go ahead and advance. And so what we do is entrepreneurial ecosystem building, which is a little bit different. So there's lots of research that has gone out there and looked at why certain cities are really good at creating entrepreneurs and others aren't, and how do you kind of create this startup structure. And what's great is now there's a lot of research that has looked at this and said, why does this happen in some places and others it doesn't? And what is all the research is down to is entrepreneurship is incredibly diverse. It really looks like such a variety of different businesses, a variety of different entrepreneurs, all in different stages. And in order to serve that variety, you can't just have one program. It's not one incubator program. Cities that do really well, that build an entrepreneurial spirit, have a lot of connectivity between lots of different resources. So they have an infrastructure that allows people to find the resources quickly, to make decisions, to get good information, and be able to grow and pivot. And so that entrepreneurial ecosystem building is providing direct services to entrepreneurs as a piece of what we do. But more broadly, we're also figuring out, how do we help entrepreneurs navigate those systems? How do we help all the resources strengthen their ability to serve entrepreneurs? How do we build a culture that has people thinking about wanting to support and celebrating entrepreneurship?
Oh, Kristin, I gave you a mouse control.
Ooh, I have mouse control. So can I forward your slide? Nope, I have to go onto mine, right?
You should be able to with the arrow or spacebar. There we go.
There you go. Okay. Oh, look at that. Thank you, Kevin. All right, so just real quick, and so entrepreneurship, as we said, very broad description. So that doesn't just mean somebody who's got the new Facebook, right? Entrepreneurship at the end of the day is people who are solving problems and moving their idea forward. So we put together recommendations on how to build the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Peoria. Some of them were substantially different. What we did was we went out, we did a comprehensive survey of entrepreneurs. We also did in-person interviews, in-depth interviews. We did a variety of outreach to all of our critical partners. And we found that there are some very specific needs in Peoria. So instead of creating what we thought the community needed, what might have worked in other communities, we really created some more tools to help build the entrepreneurial ecosystem out in Peoria. And they look a little bit different. So to just give you a couple of examples, so catalyst actions, one of the things we found is that we need people in Peoria to feel empowered. Only 3 out of 1,000 people are going to start a business, but the other 997 do, that can make or break the success of that business. So we really wanted to change culture and start talking about why people wanted to do actions. How can they take action? What do those actions look like? So we created a program called Catalyst Actions. And on the bottom left, you'll see the second one that I'll talk about, which is Catalyst Pilots. So instead of just serving entrepreneurs directly, what we also want to do is get entrepreneurs working together on projects in the community. So we're actually having them self-organize, supporting them with ASU resources, helping them coordinate efforts to create their own ecosystem, their own resources that they see that really help serve. That'll not only help them learn those entrepreneurial skills of starting something, of going out and being leaders, but it also makes it sustainable in the long term, that we're creating an ecosystem that can thrive no matter what partner is going to be there. All right, so there you go. So there's lots of different ways. And so how this all breaks down is we've got lots of different tools serving entrepreneurs out in Peoria and non-entrepreneurs and all the resource partners. that are out there. So this is just a quick graphic to kind of give you an idea of all the different pieces that if you are an entrepreneur out in Peoria, if you know somebody who is and you're watching this, you go, what does this all mean? We've got everything from they can go to the website, check us out. We've got great blogs about entrepreneurial leaders. You can call us, ask, hey, I need help with X, and we'll help them wayfind, all the way through acceleration and incubation. So programs, the high growth ventures that are looking at how do I take my idea to the next level. And so here's a couple of numbers just by the first year to give you an idea. So we had over 490 workshop attendees, huge emailing list. By the second year, we started to refine our metrics. So it wasn't just participatory metrics, but we started looking at not just how many people came to one workshop, but how many people attended multiple workshops. How many people, this was the first time they had ever attended a workshop, so they were new to the ecosystem. We've had over 33 events in the last year, and that doesn't include the over 44 1 million cups that we've also been committee leaders. So as you can see, that is a lot of events in a very short amount of time. So 2 years, we've done over 60 events and 76 1 million cups. And if you're not familiar with 1 million cups, I highly encourage you to look at that. So again, it's just a couple of examples of how we've activated. So program library, we had over 23 people come no coding workshop, which I know if you haven't done work out in the community, to get 23 people to show up to a free library workshop is just a huge response, especially out in North Peoria. So we're really excited to see that. You can see it's actually one of our community leaders who is actually putting together this programming and teaching his fellow entrepreneurs. We amplify, so we've got over different blogs of people, community leaders who are in Peoria telling their story, and we've integrated their story with key entrepreneurial lessons that we found were missing in the system when we did our assessment. And then we've had great big, large events like our Peoria Forward Innovation Night. And this was one of those events that we were able to bring some of the great minds that are happening at ASU. And so Dr. Stephen Potts came out and shared what he is doing with his great high scalable startup that is looking at cancer solutions within ASU. But he lives in Peoria, so he actually shared his experience out in Peoria, how he has that venture and how he's done it on a global scale with everybody from someone who had their own business and is just getting started all the way through to somebody who sells Mary Kay. And they all got to share in not only his wisdom and his excitement, but the understanding of the scalability and innovation that really has access to anybody because their neighbor was doing it. And finally, we just talked a little bit about those catalyst actions and talking about how we get people involved, how do we get them into action. Here's some of those great examples of the catalyst pilots we've had to date. So a group of local artists that all came together and did a holiday sales campaign together, how to effectively build that. We had a great group of high school students who wanted to build an esports league out in Peoria. So we set that up as their own venture. They had 60 people come out to their very first tournament, and they're talking about how to use esports to build a community. And then we've done a lot of work with working with great community partners. We've been really invested in working with everything from the community colleges, the Chamber of Commerce, to with great leaders like Ron Babich in this photo with the West Valley Innovation Alliance to really identify these key pockets, because Peoria is a suburb and it is a very early stage ecosystem. So we couldn't just have events and people would show. We had to figure out how to really leverage the energy that was out there to find the partners in these little pockets and be able to blend all of those partners to really start gaining momentum so that you had large scale events and people found the resources that they needed. All right, so back to that customer. So those are the big ones, and we're coming up on years 3 and 4, and we're really hoping to continue to push this idea. We want Peoria to be a national thought leader when it comes to entrepreneurial ecosystem building. We're part of national discussions on what does this mean to be an entrepreneurial ecosystem, and Peoria is a great, unique, kind of encapsulated little community, as Stephen and I found that a lot of things can happen in a very small petri dish, and we're really hoping to get people to get an increased sense of ownership, to build that sense of place, to be something that they're really proud to be from, all through entrepreneurship. And so now I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen, who's going to share a little bit about some of the feedback. We went to our partners and said, and maybe we should actually pause here, Stephen, and kind of we sort of alluded to how we started working together at the beginning of this. But if you want to just do a quick little introduction of what our partnership has looked like and how we have collaborated, since we've talked a little bit about what is Peoria Forward and Peoria Project Cities, maybe what is our combination together first?
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. So, I mean, we basically, once we made the connection, Kristen and I kind of put our heads together and we were like, what does it look like to be two different arms of one entity, but have a situation where the left hand's talking to the right? And so right off the bat, we set up it was once a month check-in call, just a standing meeting on our calendar, whether we had anything to talk about or not, which we did more often than not. But it was a great tool for us because, and Kristen hop in on this too, but it was kind of a low-key meeting. We were able to just kind of chat about, what challenges we're facing in the community, kind of what Anne alluded to earlier with getting to know the insider politics and personalities. We were able to kind of learn from one another's challenges and also support each other's efforts, and just kind of strategize around the bureaucracy. Do you have anything to add to the check-in calls?
Yeah, I would say, well, not only the thing calls, but just in general, I think one of the things that was very clear off the bat was we were talking to a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
So when you're working with one partner, even though the city of Peoria is a relatively large place,
1,200
very
employees.
quickly, like 1,200 employees, even with that one partner, we were both talking to very similar people. And I can tell you one of the challenges we had in Peoria Forward from the get-go is I think people hear ASU and they think ASU. They don't realize how big it is. And so piece of the challenge was people didn't know the difference between those two things, right? They weren't sure. They'd sort of heard about Peoria Forward. We'd gotten there about 6 months before you guys started with some of our outreach. They knew there was sort of ASU coming in the pipeline. And then Project Cities came in, and they too were like, oh, okay, that's ASU. It's the same thing. So even off the bat, we had the opportunity of having a lot of talk to the same people, but also we had been a new enough partnership too that there still wasn't clarity on what we do. And I think that's very common in any community partnership is it takes a while for some of the partners to figure out what does it mean to work with the university? What are these pieces? When they heard ASU, it was this blanket ASU. And so some of those check-in calls helped us really figure out and how to coordinate and how to be able to articulate this is the lane that Peoria Forward is in. This is what Project Cities is doing, but also to just collaborate back and forth, able to identify and have clarity on our own behalfs on what the differences between those two things were that we could clearly articulate to our partner.
Yeah, and something I always appreciated too was it was not just collaboration for the sake of collaboration. We were showing up to each other's events. Even something as simple as like showing up to a tabling event, which is mutually beneficial because we get to distribute our survey. But I could also give Elizabeth bathroom breaks and things like that, and we can promote each other on social media and things like that. So it was about kind of turning the meeting into action and how can we actually support each other, present a unified front for this giant box that is ASU, and help the community to recognize just what you were talking about, that it's multiple departments kind of working together. Well, hopefully.
And I would say some of the best practices I would add to that, because I think we've all been in those partnership meetings where you meet another partner, whether it's internal to ASU or not, and you have this nice, oh, this is what I do, and then this is what I do. Oh, okay. You've checked that box off, so we don't have to meet or talk again, right? We've had the partnership meetings. I think both Stephen and I come from a very committed place of helping the community. And so very quickly we were willing to share what the challenges we were facing were. And in some of those deep questions of like, literally, what is keeping you up at night? What is the biggest challenge that you foresee in this community? Allowed us to find some of those places where we could support each other versus it being just kind of a generally nice kind of check-in. And I think finding even just those micro actions of, oh, you don't know who, this person is, cool, let me do that introduction, right? Or actually, if you're not getting response from this person, you might want to ask them this way, or you might want to just go around them and really it's this person you're trying to talk to. And so we were able to kind of share some of those and really find those key little points that over time start to build trust, but also build understanding that's really effective when it comes to collaboration.
Yeah, and so I guess, do we want to talk about Peoria's bullets in kind of broad strokes? And
go ahead.
All right, so if we can advance to the next slide. Peoria provided some some comments to us on what was effective about the, I thought we had, do we have a slide for this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kristin,
So,
you still have control.
Sorry.
oh, okay.
I am in
so
control, people. Do not worry. I will advance the slides moving forward.
They identified 5 things where working with the ASU multiple entities actually facilitated some internal dialogue. So they said it opened lines of communication. They found that it was important to approach the, similar to what we found, to approach the multiple partnerships through having good internal collaboration to create that synergy and cohesiveness. They noted local priorities must drive the process, and noted that we did a good job of kind of checking in on what those priorities were, and using that as the basis to advance the partnerships. They noted that.
Let me jump in on that one real quick, because I thought that was a great one that Amber drove on this. And I think that what that breaks down is, at the end of the day, we're a university. And people don't often know how to work with a university, right? Ooh, I didn't advance that. People don't know how to work with a university, even if they sort of understand we're programs and there's something, right? But what's really important, I think what both of our programs did that I think the city really appreciates, is asking them, no, what are your high priorities? Give us what you guys are working towards, and then we can present to you how that looks. But if it starts with, oh, this is ASU, this is our goals first, and then coming in from the city, that's where you start to see some of those partnerships struggle. So, and that's where you're not going to get the buy-in. You're not going to get in that next bullet point of they have to be fully engaged. And if it's us pushing our agendas out in the community, you're not going to get that engagement. You're not going to get that buy-in. But if you really can lead and say, hey, this is what we know is already happening in the city that you guys are committed to, and this is how we're advancing that, that's really where you get to see that engagement as well as their focus being front and center.
Yeah. And I think point number 4 also was, Peoria was very bought in, right from the get-go. They were just an exceptional partner and continue to be, even in these crazy times. But, they really recognize the value of partnering with the university, of tapping into student work and experts' research. And so they, pointed that out. And just their last point, I think, speaks to itself, having a strong kind of internal process to manage communication, logistics, and such. So I know we wanted to offer some space for Q&A. Kristin, do you have anything else to add before I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions?
Yeah, I think what we kind of talked a little bit about was, we talked about our individual programs, some of the best practice we found in collaborating, and then some of the feedback that we got from the city. And so that was kind of our overall pieces. Love to open it up. What are some of the Q&A or thoughts that you guys might have? I haven't seen anything come up in the chat quite yet, so feel free to type that in.
Anne, you just unmuted. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. Here, let me put myself. So I'm curious, Kristin, it seems like you've had a lot of success with Peoria, and you have success as far as statistics and also success stories. Have you had interest from, because cities talk to each other, so have you had interest from other communities saying, hey, how did you guys do that? And can you do that for us? So I'm just kind of curious if your success has helped kind of spread the word about the entrepreneurial benefits of ASU being socially embedded, and if that has created some opportunity in other, maybe nearby communities to Peoria, or maybe
Absolutely.
other
Yeah.
cities
So, I mean, I'm
around the
part of a comprehensive team. So for you that aren't familiar with entrepreneurship and innovation, I encourage you to look it up, entrepreneurship.asu.edu. And so I'm part of an entire team that just does community entrepreneurship. So we currently have 5 different partnerships with Mesa, with the city of Chandler, with Rhode Island, with LA, that we're building out this type of programming in all of these different cities. And so we knew Peoria was really to be our scalable model to figure out how to start to spread to other cities. In Peoria, they're getting the full toolbox because they had an early stage ecosystem and the city was bought in, so we could bring all those resources. Moving forward, we're talking to all the different cities that are coming forward and figuring out how do we support each of these individual cities based off of their needs with our toolbox that we've developed from the city of Peoria. yes, we're starting some of those early stage conversations, and yet there's already been other conversations that have been happening that now we can roll these tools out to them as well.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions?